First, let's explore Native Americans of the Eastern Woodlands. Each woodland nation had its own name. They were called the Algonquin, the Iroquois, the Wampanoag, and the Cree. Each people had their own customs. A custom is a special way a group of people do things, but each shared a common bond, their respect for nature. And nature provided everything the Native American people needed to live. Many different nations settled in the woodlands of North America. The trees of the forest provided them with materials to make homes or shelters to protect themselves from the weather and the animals. One type of home some woodland people built were called wigwams. Wigwams were built out of trees and bark from the surrounding forests. Their round shape protected them from every kind of weather condition, from rain, wind, and snow. Families would build fires inside their wigwams. The fire was used to heat the home and for cooking too. Other woodland people built homes that could hold several families. They lived in a larger type of house called a longhouse. A longhouse was also built from trees. A longhouse was supported by long poles and covered with bark from the trees. They too, like wigwams, had rounded roofs, but longhouses were much bigger. Inside a longhouse, there were many fire pits, which kept the longhouses warm and were used for cooking as well. Above each fire pit, there was a hole in the longhouse roof to let the smoke escape. As many as 30 families could live in one longhouse. Each family had their own space to live, sleep, and store their belongings. Woodland people lived together in villages. Woodland villages were built near a river or stream so the people would have easy access to water and fish. To protect their homes, many woodland peoples built walls around their village. Some constructed palisades. Palisades are walls that are 10 to 12 feet high and made out of wood poles from the forest trees. The men of the woodlands also had to be skilled at taking materials from the forest and making the tools they needed. Using a small hammer-like tool made from a deer's antlers, men would chip away flint to make sharp arrowheads. Rope, too, was important to Native Americans. The men knew that certain fiber plants that grew wild in the woods would be woven into strong ropes for lashing and tying. The women of the woodlands had many skills as well. They were excellent farmers. They planted seeds and harvested crops. In addition, women took care of the homes and children. At an early age, they learned to make beautiful handcrafted baskets for carrying and storing food. Women also used their weaving skills to make large fish nets for fishing. The women also shaped and molded clay to make pottery that was used for cooking or holding water. And when it came to preparing and cooking the family meals, the women and girls of the family took on that chore as well. Food was cooked over a fire in a clay pot, on stones found in the forest, or roasted on a stick. During harvest seasons, some food was dried and saved for the winter. Much of it was stored in a separate hut or pits, with storage built below the ground where it was much cooler. Listening to stories told by the native elders was also an important part of a child's education. Stories and songs about heroes and their adventures taught children about their past, their culture, and about good morals. Native Americans of the woodlands believed that everything had a spirit. Every animal, every tree, every rock. They held ceremonies to honor and thank these spirits. They would sing, dance, and feast inside the longhouse. The many nations of the eastern woodlands had their own traditions and celebrations and their own ways of dressing, but they all had one very important thing in common. They all depended on the gifts of the forest to survive.